Good afternoon and welcome. We are so excited that Susan Jaffe, who is now with Pittsburgh Ballet Theatre, has agreed to join us for round 2 of Global Conversations, Navigating Difficult Times. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you. Very glad to be here.
So tell me a little bit about what your days look like right now.
Well, at this very moment, most of the organization is on reduced time for this month in order to save some funds to be able to float us until the next year. And so people are working, but on a very, very reduced schedule. So I'm having to find that person at that hour and that person at that hour. And it's been a little bit of a puzzle. But the school is doing Zoom summer intensives. And so I've been teaching a couple of those classes a week, which has been super fun. I'm actually really enjoying teaching on Zoom.
Are you really?
I am.
So when did you transition from being dean at University of North Carolina School of the Arts over to Pittsburgh Ballet Theatre? Did you get any time off? Were you doing both jobs at some point? Yeah, figured.
Yeah, no time off this year. At least at this time. Usually the summer you take a couple of weeks off, but you know, it's really important for me to get to know the organization, and probably around the holidays I'll take a week or two, just unplug hopefully. But my official first day officially was July 1st. So I've literally been the artistic director for 20 days.
Well, congratulations and happy anniversary. So this may sound like a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. It's a two-parter. One, why did you take the job? And two, how are the jobs different?
Well, I'm still learning this job, so and we're in the middle of a pandemic, so it's not going to be exactly what a normal day would look like for an artistic director, because you're in the studio all day and all of those things. But the difference is that as the dean, I spent much more time in front of a computer, doing a lot of paperwork, writing reports, writing letters, doing all sorts of things like that. It was very heavily administrative. And here, there is some administration, but it's not as heavy administratively. So I am in a lot of meetings right now, but I think once we get into rehearsals, then I will obviously not be able to be in all of the meetings. I really want to break up my day to try to be in the studio at least 3 hours a day. And I'm also going to be teaching twice a week, so that at least for this first year, I'll teach twice a week so that I can really impart to the dancers what I want to see from them and all of that. So I really look forward to getting to do that. Right now the dancers are off, but we will start back on August 10th.
What skills, what leadership qualities have you developed over the years that you find are useful now and you think will be useful going forward? Tell us a little bit about your background and how it's kind of informed how you've gotten here.
Well, when I took over as a dean at UNCSA, I inherited 14 faculty members, a little bit more than half ballet, and then the other half contemporary. And, you know, it was a difficult journey in the beginning. You know, I was new and you have to prove yourself. So I recognized that everybody had very strong personalities, and that my job was to keep them responsible, keep them learning, keep them growing, but support them, like have their back. And but also having somebody's back is saying the truth. You know, if you need to hear the truth, whether it's just, you know, in your class, I would really like you to focus more on whatever. I think in the beginning, my faculty were nervous about what I would just say giving an input, what they would think of as criticism, right? But they got used to it and they recognized. I remember one faculty member looked at me and she said, you know, it's so interesting, you make this not scary, you know, because we should all be growing. We should all be, you know, embracing growth. And so I really felt responsible for that. And it helped grow me, because when I had to do something hard, it was out of compassion. It was out of the best for all and the best for the individual. And then lastly, the fun part was being able to program and go in and coach and program. And by my last year, we had 16,000 ticket buyers to the Nutcracker, and we had 12 shows.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I spent a lot of time educating people, donors, friends, community. I really wanted people to understand dance, because if you don't understand it, you can't connect to it on a deep level. So I really made it a priority to educate people in it as well.
Yeah, and I think because we were talking, as I think I mentioned to you, to Bridget Briner, and Europe has, if not more of a monoculture, at least an acceptance of classical music, opera, etc. Very often the ballet is embedded within that context, and the idea that culture is something just for old people or just for a certain segment of the population doesn't exist. Everybody goes and everybody's exposed. While you were talking, I was thinking this might make you an extremely effective fundraiser and also ambassador for your company going forward, because you're used to opening up dance for a conversation.
Yes, and I like it, you know, because the rewards are that people start to really love it with passion and understand what they're looking at, which then, of course, that's great for a dancer.
What was your interview like? I mean, who did you interview with, and what was your interview like? And I never really circled back to, and what made you say, yes, I want this job?
Well, I knew the job was available last August, and I did not apply, or I did not reach out, because I was on the fence. You know, I was on the fence at the time because I felt very responsible for my faculty. I had grown the program along with them. I was very proud of it. I had a very comfortable life. But a headhunter called me in October, and after a conversation with this headhunter, I remembered I had always thought that one day I would take over a company. And you know, I'm not getting any younger, and basically said to myself, this is probably your last opportunity to apply and still be seen as vital and strong and ready to do something. So I applied, and I had a few Zoom interviews, and I really liked the search committee. And they were very smart people from the board and from the Pittsburgh community. And I thought, I really, really like this community. And then I was fortunate enough to be asked to come to Pittsburgh to interview for 2 days. They had me sit on the first and the second day. And if you've seen The Crown, you know how the queen sits on the chair and she's crossed her legs and the little purse is right next to her. And I was sitting, you know, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm like in The Crown. And people would pile in, sit down, talk to me for half an hour, get up, rotate out, a new group would come in, sit down. Yeah, for hours.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about how you plan on selecting your choreographers, your artistic vision. The press release that came out mentioned all men. Are there some women that you're interested in working with?
Oh, yes. No, my list was much longer, but, you know, they always whittle these things down. You know, I'm a huge fan of Helen Pickett, Kathy Marson.
We interviewed 9 of them, including your friend, and I adore her, Helen Pickett. We interviewed Annabelle, and then a bunch of emerging choreographers. So one of the things DDP can do is we do have this massive roster of female set, costume, lighting designers, female composers, as well as female choreographers. And there are a ton of really, really exciting women out there, which can lead us a little bit into what your artistic vision is. And that's going to be, I mean, that's got to be very interesting. It's got to be collapsing down the next couple of months and then going back out to 3 or 4 years and collapsing back down again.
Yes, I mean, right now things are being deferred, so programs that were going to go this year are now going next year. And what I might do is spread some of those programs that were a whole and spread them out over maybe the next couple of years so that I can add some things that I would like to add.
There we go.
Yeah. And so, of course, old and new. I like old and new. I love classical ballet. I love new ballet. I love Balanchine. I love all of it. And one of the things I also will be focusing on is not only diversity in male and female, but diversity in race. What these great choreographers that also need to be featured in the dance world. So I'm going to be focusing on that and making sure that there's a wide array of voices up on the stage in as much as I can do. This town really likes full-length ballets. So the shorter ballets, maybe I have 2 opportunities a year to have mixed repertory. So, but I will be relishing the mixed repertory. And of course, I was talking with Helen Pickett about one of her full-length ballets. So, we're going to be adding more and more of that as well. But again, I love the classics.
Okay, can we do the fun stuff now? The lightning round? Okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Favorite dance memory?
When I did Swan Lake in 1996, that was just easy. It was like the only time it was ever easy.
What?
It was so fun. I had a great time. It's funny because one of the things in my mindset workshop, I talk about sort of being a conduit for much larger arts and creation than just yourself. And so I call it when it's almost like another sort of force takes you over. I call it riding the wave. You know how like when you're on a big wave and the energy of the wave just takes you into shore? And that's what it felt like. I mean, I literally felt like I was being danced. And that is so fun.
My goodness. That is so fun. First of all, it's very Buddhist, but there's also a social psychologist, I think, sports performance guy, long name. I think it's Hungarian. His book is called Flow. Have you read it?
Yeah, I did read that just last year, last year.
It's great, and time expands and collapses. It's funny we're talking about this. I had one of those this morning when I was rowing with my coach, and just everything all of a sudden went right. The problem is it's so sweet and it's so wonderful that you keep chasing it forever. Once you've tasted it, you know how good it feels. Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Favorite would be, when you think of savory, what's
steak. And
God bless you.
Yeah.
After my own heart. So I'm Dutch, so for me it's bread and cheese, but yes. Broadway or West End?
Broadway.
Okay. Dream travel, I know this is a tease. Dream travel destination post-COVID?
I think I just want to be on a beach.
Well, that answers the beach or mountain question. I'm just going to take that right off there. Serenade or Romeo and Juliet?
Well, I've seen Romeo and Juliet probably 300 times. So I'm going to say Serenade because I love that ballet and I haven't seen enough of it.
You don't get to see it enough. It's like me and Hamlet. I've seen Hamlet so many times and I love it, but I would like to see a Lear or something like that. Guilty pleasure.
Right now, it's chips and salsa.
Oh, my goodness. We are going to be friends. That's awesome. Maybe with like an adult beverage to go with it. Tutu or no tutu?
That's a hard question. But because I like them both, but I love to see the body. So no tutu, I'll say.
Yeah. I mean, if you like Balanchine, I mean, it's it's the line, etc. Favorite theater?
I would have to say the Metropolitan Opera House in New York City.
Hopefully we'll be back in there. Rubies, emeralds, or diamonds? To watch, to perform, to whatever you think.
Rubies.
It's fun. So many people pick that. Graham or Cunningham? And if you pick Cunningham, could you explain it to me, please?
So I would pick Cunningham.
Okay.
Cunningham is, and the reason, I love them both. It's very hard. It would be very hard to really choose, but Cunningham is very balletic. And so, and I was thinking about this question in relation to my own body. I think doing Graham would hurt right now, but Cunningham may not hurt as much. So I would choose Cunningham. And also I love John Cage, and I love that whole collaboration. So he was just very inventive. Not to say that Martha wasn't either. Martha was amazing.
Sure.
But so, yeah.
From whatever perspective you want to give us, rehearsal or performance?
Well, performance is where the magic really happens. Like we said, riding the wave in the flow, and that is a very magical experience. The only other experience that I can relate performing to is nature, is being and feeling in nature. Nature is very powerful, very magical. If you sit and you feel it and you listen to it, it's amazing. And it's very, very similar for me, my feeling of being on stage, performing on stage.
Here's the big questions.
Okay.
What do you think needs to, well, first of all, do you think ballet as a culture needs to change? And if you've already talked about diversity, and if so, how and where?
Well, I mean, the leaders have to be the leaders, right? It is in the professional, on the professional stages, in the schools. It does have to change. We do have to be more inclusive, because it has not been inclusive in the past, and we're only just starting to wake up to that. I think that people hadn't thought about that before, and now we're thinking about that. So it starts with us. And I actually was having a discussion with Wendy Perrin, and we were talking about Petrushka, and how do you depict the Moor without coloring your skin. And it's a big controversy. And actually, I said, let's please send those questions, because she wrote to like 32 of us and asked us what we thought. And I think that this should be discussed in Dance Magazine, in articles, etc., until we come up. Because I said, I think perhaps the more, and we talked about Bayadere and all of those kinds of ballets, where I said, so do we say Bayadere isn't in India anymore? Do we, how do we not culturally appropriate cultures? And so, the movies have done an amazing job with these avatars, these made up characters from made up lands, with made up colors. And somebody sent a beautiful illustration in the Jinsky times of a dancer who was just totally green, So, we don't know where all this is going to land. But we certainly want to make sure that people don't feel targeted or somehow other and things like that. So it's a big, long discussion. I don't think it's going to end tomorrow. It's going to be a long discussion.
So that's definitely perceptions of sort of different races or cultures on stage. What about ballets that show slave girls? What about ballets that show continuing violence against women, rape, etc.? Do you feel that's also important to talk about?
Absolutely. Everybody's talking about, should we be doing Corsair anymore? And the violence against women, these are stories. So it's just hard to know where to draw that line. because, you know, women have been raped, men have been murdered. There's all kinds of human situations in these ballets. But I certainly don't want to see a slave and a woman enslaved anymore on stage.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
My response to so much of this is that while those happen and those are stories, there are so many other stories out there. And I think going back to your point about bringing in some women and women of color, there's a lot of really interesting stories that never make it to the stage. Or I was talking to somebody about one of my favorite rewrites. So the book is called Circe. And instead of it being it's not the perspective of the man in the Odyssey, it's the perspective of the woman. It completely flips it around.
Wow.
Yeah, I think there's all sorts of stories out there, like you mentioned Akram Khan, where you take a story that's been looked at and completely change it around, and it tastes and feels very different. You look at Annabelle's A Streetcar Named Desire, and it's from the woman's perspective as much, and it feels like a completely new story, and it wakes my brain up, at least. So to your point about folks weren't really thinking about these things, I think that for me, while this is a time of really being scary and uncertain, to me, it's also an opportunity, right? And so if you want to finish on that and talk a little bit about, you know, how you're going to lead into opportunity, I think people will be very interested.
When this whole pandemic came, are you talking about as far as the pandemic or just as far as diversity?
I think the pandemic and perhaps using it as an opportunity to reimagine the art form generally.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's just start. Well, let's talk about it in two parts. First, the pandemic, because I think, you know, a lot of artistic directors and all arts organizations are, you know, I think initially people were sort of paralyzed. You know, now what? Now what do we do? You know, and we've had to really start to think outside the box and get really inventive and creative about what we're doing, because otherwise we would be shuttered away until there's a vaccine. So, for example, we had this opportunity that was put across our executive director, Harris Ferris's desk, of being filmed at this beautiful grounds, Heartwood Acres. And we were supposed to be performing there on August 16th on an outdoor stage that they had, but that was closed down. So we were approached by Channel 2, KDKA, and they said, how would you like to be filmed out on the grounds, dancing out on the grounds of Heartwood Acres? And so I'm sitting there thinking about that, and I thought, it's the summer. Why don't we do a Midsummer Night's Dream? And so, of course, you can't do a 53-minute ballet. You know, I mean, I was still living in Winston. I was still doing everything on Zoom at that point. And so what I thought, okay, the dancers had gotten used to, due to social media, had gotten used to choreographing. So what I did was I took the overture, Mendelssohn's overture, and as you know, in every overture, it introduces all the characters that you are going to be listening to throughout the ballet or throughout the piece of music. And so I listened to the overture. I said, oh my gosh, that's Titania, that's Oberon, that's Puck, there's the fairies, there's Hermia, Lysander, you know, Helena, Demetrius, there's Bottom. And I literally created a storyboard for the four choreographers of the dancers. And so I said, okay, you're doing Titania, Oberon, and Puck. You're doing Bottom and the actors. You're doing the four couples. And I created a timeline, like from 022 to 116. It's this scene. And from 116, you know, and then they rehearsed for 7 days. We had our costume director. She put them in wonderful costumes. We put them in Keds sneakers,
Oh, how
Yeah,
fabulous.
head sneakers, and we just made them flesh toned. But they had the garlands, and the women's hair was down, and the men were, it was wonderful. And so they filmed it, and it's still in the editing process, but it will be on Channel 2 on August 16th, on the day that we were supposed to perform. And also part of this process, as I was doing some research on A Midsummer Night's Dream, as I was creating the storyboard, I saw that there were a lot of little short clips of the story of A Midsummer Night's Dream. And one of them I had seen that the director tells one part of the story, and then the production manager tells another part of it. And I thought, oh, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's have the dancers tell part of the story. And well, the idea ended up being that it was kids from our community school.
Oh, how great.
And they were so cute. And they had these little scripts, and they told the story of A Midsummer Night's Dream because, I think,
I love this.
Oh, it's so fun.
It's so inclusive. It's so fun. It's so joyful and so magical. I mean, really celebrating summer.
Yeah. And we put them in costumes. We put them at Heartwood Acres. They had their little garlands, and they were so cute. So, and then some things about PBT and a couple of our social media things we'll make up.
That sounds absolutely fabulous. I would love to when it's released, I would love to put it up on social media and even in our resources, because it just sounds like such a joyful, warm, open-armed embrace of the community.
Yeah.
So fun. And how did the dancers feel about doing the choreography? I bet that was super fun, a little scary.
They had so much fun. Well, they had been choreographing little 5-minute dances for our social media platform. So they had been doing this for 6 weeks or so, choreographing, and they love to choreograph. So they embraced it. They had so much fun, and so it was great fun. And so, that started to make me think about, okay, all of our theaters are still closed. So what are we going to do?
Yep.
And our executive director found us a stage, an outdoor stage. So we're going to do a performance over Labor Day weekend with pas de deux and solos. The pas de deux are going to be the people who are married, cohabitate together. Fortunately, we have many couples. So we created a whole program with people who are cohabitating, and then some solos in there. So we'll be doing 6 shows. I said, just plop it out on a lawn in a park, and let people put their blankets down and have a picnic and watch a performance. So we're going to do that.
What a lovely romantic idea.
Yeah.
Live music or recorded?
Recorded.
Okay.
Yeah, recorded. And then I had heard about this very inventive troupe in Seattle doing performances on their porches.
Yep.
And so I want to do something like that around Halloween.
How fun would that be?
I'm excited.
No, I think it'll be incredibly cool. I love that idea. Well, again, you'll have to send it to us. Unfortunately, we are out of time. The lovely part is that you have ended on a hopeful, creative, resilient note, which is a really nice place to stop. So thank you so much, Susan Jaffe. We are so delighted and honored that you spent time with us, because it sounds like you have 15 jobs, not just 2. So
yeah.
Right now. So thank you very, very much. And we'll look forward to catching up with you again in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for all you're doing for the dance world. We really appreciate it.
So welcome.